Some writers overestimate themselves while others underestimate themselves. Which one of those you are is strongly impacted by the type of brain you were born with. In the last video, we talked about convincers and how their cognitive function of introverted feeling deceives them, and what fiction authors whose brains strongly express this function can do about that. In this video, we'll look at the other side, the supporters. We'll talk about how extraverted feeling can serve as a source of inspiration. We'll talk about imposter syndrome and compare how it manifests for both FI users and FE users, and there will also be a bit of career advice for supporters. And then I will explain two major advantages that come with being a supporter. So first of all, I want to give a brief recap regarding the interactions between introverted feeling and extroverted feeling. If you still remember this bit from last week's video, feel free to skip it. Introverted feeling, or FI, is the source of emotional investment. Extroverted feeling, or FE, makes you care about other people's investment. Half the human population are convincers. They express introverted feeling predominantly. The other half are supporters and express extroverted feeling predominantly. The introverted feeling of supporters is rather weak, so they don't have the ability to value themselves all that much, which leads to low self-esteem and a feeling of guilt if they can't help other people. Supporters always hope that by helping people, they can earn the investment of a convincer, so they can value themselves vicariously through the other person. This is why supporters are natural helpers. Their guilt incentivizes them to help. If they see someone needing help and they can't help that person, they feel guilty and worthless. Low FI is also the reason why they do not value their own stories. They have a natural need to try and earn the investment of other people, their audiences, in order to feel good about their own stories. Alright, supporters or extroverted feeling users. We already learned that these people sense other people's investments and values. But does that actually mean that they only write if someone else cares about their story? And what if there was no one around? Would they still write? Why do supporters write? Earlier we talked about the introverted feeling version of inspiration. So now let's talk about the extroverted feeling version of inspiration. Supporters don't usually write for success or fame. Supporters are far more likely to write for other reasons. For instance, because they genuinely enjoy it, or because they want to explore their fears, like Stephen King. But there is also a form of inspiration that comes entirely and only from extroverted feeling. And to understand that, you need to know that supporters always have a need to be understood, to find someone who understands them, because due to their low introverted feeling, they actually lack the ability to make sense of their own feelings. They don't really understand their own feelings. So that is why they always try to get someone invested in them so that this person might help them understand their feelings and make sense of their feelings. And in writing, they get to explore their emotions and try to find that understanding. FE inspiration is oftentimes just the supporter trying to understand their own emotions and feelings. Here is Bret Easton Ellis talking about this.
Writing for me is an emotional process. I'm feeling something, therefore I want to write about this feeling. I don't have things I want to say. I don't have political things I want to talk about. I'm actually writing about a feeling. I'm writing about something that's going on in my life that is obsessing me, that's bothering me, that's hurting me, that's confusing me, that's distracting me.
So how does extroverted feeling impact your writing process, and what do supporters suffer from? The obvious answer is imposter syndrome. To explain imposter syndrome, we have to explain it for both convincers and supporters. For convincers, the feeling of inferiority is the result of them comparing themselves or their achievements to other people and their achievements. This is the result of the cognitive function of extroverted thinking, which is attached to introverted feeling. We're gonna have a deep dive into these cognitive functions in a future video. Suffice to say that the tendency of extroverted thinking is why convincers always try to achieve. So they have proof of their value, and that proof is their justification to feel valuable. A convincer who lacks the necessary achievements to match up to other people's achievements will also suffer from imposter syndrome. However, if they perceive nobody having better achievements, then they will not suffer from imposter syndrome. With convincers, it's all about the comparisons. Supporters don't compare themselves as much. However, they still feel inferior almost by default, despite evidence, because their introverted feeling is very weak, and their ability to value themselves, as we have discussed before, is not that strong. The result is that even if you have achieved a lot, you still suffer from imposter syndrome because you, being a supporter, don't draw your self-worth from your achievements. This is why so many famous, established authors, even though they have a lot of proof of their value and skill, they still feel like they shouldn't be doing this. Supporters feel valuable only when they get other people to value them, and they do that by helping them or by entertaining them. And this is actually one of the big advantages that supporters have, and we're going to discuss this in a minute. But first, I want to give a big piece of advice for supporters. The careers of many supporters start when they just try that writing thing, and they realize that they enjoy it. And then they start fishing for appreciation by posting their stories online, and they gain feedback as well as confidence because they realize that other people like their writing and value their writing. Find a community where you get feedback and encouragement. The convincers do this automatically because they have no problem asking for help, but supporters really do have a problem asking for help because they feel guilty asking for help, because they always want to be the helper. They don't want to be helped. And they also feel guilty at the thought of potentially bothering people with their bad writing. And they need to get over that. They seriously need to get over that. If you're a supporter, then you need to understand that you are allowed to ask for help. Now let's talk about the good side of being a supporter. You have two major advantages when it comes to being commercially successful. The first one is kind of obvious. Since your investment comes from other people, you're naturally invested in other people's values and in figuring out how you can get them to invest in you and your writing. You naturally gain a sense of what they care about and how to get them invested, and that is crucial when it comes to commercial success. The convincers who aim for large commercial success are more likely to look at trends and statistics when it comes to determining how to be successful. But the real key to success lies in understanding an audience's preferences, and that is the realm of the supporter. And I don't mean pandering to their preferences. I'm pretty sure that no fiction writer writes specifically to please their audiences. There are simpler ways to make money. The desire to please an audience is more of an extroverted intuition thing, which is something that we talked about in previous videos. But the awareness of what audiences value is extroverted feeling. The second major advantage supporters have is that they tend to be better at writing characters. This is something that we'll talk about in length in the next season on this channel, which will be all about characters. But I feel that it is important to mention it here as well, because it is a huge factor of why supporters are commercially more successful than convincers. So why the hell do supporters tend to be better at writing characters? To put it briefly, introverted feeling is better at understanding people and therefore characters, but extroverted feeling is better at catching people's values and seeing the personality of people and therefore characters. And a person's personality filters through what they value. I'm not going to explain how that works in this video, but it basically means that supporters are excellent at writing distinct characters and portraying them in a realistic and likable way. As an example, let's look at how Owen Colfer writes a dragon.
If then you give your dragon a personality where he likes Netflix, he likes martinis, he likes some conversation in the evening.
It's all about what the dragon likes. Supporters understand a person's personality as the sum of what they value, meaning what they like and care about. That's the supporter approach to writing characters. It's all about values. If we compare Tolkien, a convincer, with J.R.R. Martin, a supporter, then we can clearly see the difference in how they created characters. In Lord of the Rings, it's Tolkien's investments that are reflected in each character and in the story itself. The characters don't have values besides how much they value good over evil and bravery over cowardice. The convincers write characters that either reflect their own values or the opposite. In A Song of Ice and Fire by J.R.R. Martin, however, every character has their own values and their own distinct personality, because J.R.R. Martin, a supporter, is aware of people's values. Convincers often dismiss other people's values, or they are not aware of them, because they are so invested in their own values. And all they think about is how they can advocate for their own values. Since extroverted feeling is all about what other people value, supporters also care way more about relationships and romance and drama, because those are all about other people valuing other people or not valuing other people. It's all about how some person feels about some other person, which is something else that quickly engages audiences. Basically, all of romantasy is written by supporters. All of this is why supporters are generally better at cultivating investment and making audiences care about their story and their characters. If only you guys had the confidence to match that advantage. To sum it up, supporters have a natural advantage that is correlated to monetary success and fame in fiction writing, while convincers lack that advantage. But convincers naturally have a stronger need to achieve and to overestimate those achievements. I want to leave you, dear supporters, with another piece of advice. You need to deal with your default fear of not being good enough. Understand that this is actually an expression of your pride. You elect yourself the judge and you judge yourselves unworthy. But who actually gave you the authority to do that? And where exactly is the proof that you are indeed unworthy? Stop being so prideful and stand up for your own writing. Bother people with your writing. Expose it to feedback. Accept that this painful feeling in your guts will always be there and learn to act despite it. That's it for these two videos. I hope they were both helpful and insightful, and perhaps even uplifting and inspiring. In the next couple videos, we'll dive deeper into the judgment functions, and I hope we'll see you then.